Hey guys, in this video, we will write an algorithm to solve a particular question, and we will also draw the IPO table for the algorithm to test the validity of the solution. So let's look at this particular question. Input two numbers. So immediately we are able to identify what our input is. We need two numbers. We need to find the sum, the difference, the product, and the quotient of these two numbers. So this is our process. So immediately we can see that we need to work out four calculations. Sum means to add, difference means to subtract, product means to multiply, and quotient means to divide. Then it says output the sum, difference, product, and the quotient. So our output also requires four outputs, which is the sum, difference, product, and the quotient. So I have been able to identify my input, two numbers, my process, calculations. I need to find the sum of the two numbers, the difference of the two numbers, the product, and the quotient. And finally, I need to output the sum, difference, product, and quotient. So let's go. Let's write the algorithm for this particular question. Step one. In step one, we need to complete our input. So I need two numbers. So I am going to say num1 equals input first number. So I have the first number, and then step two, we're going to say num2 equals input second number. So this is fairly straightforward. These two steps, I have now completed my input. So this is what the question wanted us to input two numbers. Now we need to start with the process. Find the sum, difference, product, and quotient. So let's start with the sum. So we're going to go into step three, and we've got the sum, which is going to be adding the two numbers that we have. So that's going to be num1 plus num2. So that calculation of num1 plus num2, if you will recall from the previous videos, these are variables which are placeholders. They store values. So whatever values are in num1 and num2, they will get added, and the result will be stored in the variable sum, which is another placeholder. Then let's work out the difference. So we're going to go into step 4. So let's call the variable, we'll just abbreviate it a bit, diff for difference, and we're going to subtract the two numbers, which is num1 minus num2. So that's the calculation for the difference. And as you can imagine, step 5, that's now the product. Let's call it prod, which is num1 times num2. And finally, in step 6, we are going to find the quotient. And the quotient is going to be num1 divided by, and for division, we will use this symbol here, the slash. We call it the slash. So num1 slash num2. On your keyboard, you won't find this division operator. So we will make use of that stroke. You will notice for multiplication, there is the letter X, but that is a character, so we will not use that for multiplication. In order to perform multiplication, we will use the star or the asterisk, which can be found on your number 8 key on the keyboard. So this is now the process that we have now completed. That's the process. Having done that, we now need to complete the output. We need to output the sum, difference, product, and quotient. So that's exactly what we will do. So let's go into step 7, and we are now going to say print. We like to print a message first. So we're going to say the sum is, and we're going to print the placeholder that contains the sum, which is called sum, S-U-M. Then we're going to go to step 8, and we're going to print the difference. The difference is, and we're going to print the placeholder. The placeholder is called diff. This is the placeholder. Don't confuse the message. In the message, I'm saying difference because this is what the user will see. And we want to explain to the user that we are finding the difference. But the actual difference is stored in a variable or a placeholder called diff. Then we go into step 9, and we're going to print the product. That's our message. Our product is, and the placeholder is called prod. Finally, in step 10, we are going to print the quotient. The quotient is, and we're going to print the placeholder QUOT. That's stores the value. And this now is the output. So what did the question want? To input two numbers, find the sum, difference, product, quotient, and to output the sum, difference, product, quotient. So there we are. We've input the two numbers. We've calculated the sum, difference, product, quotient, and then we've displayed the sum, difference, product, and quotient. Now let's look at the validity of this algorithm by drawing an IPO table. So in our IPO table, we are going to have 3 columns, and we're going to have 3 rows. Okay, so this column will be for our input. Then the next column will be for the process, and the last column will be for the output. So here we will have our input, our process, and output. And we will then test it for different sets of values. So in this row, we'll have the first set of values. In the next row, we'll have the second set of values. And in the last row, we'll have the third set of values. So when we're testing, we're using 3 sets of values to ensure, to double check that the algorithm is correct. So let's start. Input. Input the first number, input the second number. So I'm going to take some numbers randomly. So let's say num1 equals 20. And let's take num2 equals 10. So at this stage, we're working on the assumption that the user, when we ask them to enter the first number, they have entered 20. And when we've asked them to enter the second number, they have entered 10. So these are numbers that we've made up. Now let's continue with the process. In the process, we say sum equals num1 plus num2. I'm not sure if I have enough space. So we're going to say sum equals num1, which is 20, plus num2, which is 10. And that's going to give me a total of 30. So I've done step 3. Now let's go into step 4. Step 4, diff is equal to, and here we're taking num1 minus num2. We're just following the steps that is in the algorithm. So diff equals num1 is 20 minus num2 is 10, and that is going to give us 10. Then step 5, we are working the product. Maybe I'll go into the next, because I'm running out of space. I should have left more space. So the product is num1, which is 20, times num2, which is 10, and 20 times 10 is 200. Finally, quotient, Q-U-O-T, quotient is equal to num1, which is 20, divided by 10. 20 divided by 10 is 2. So in the process, we've completed steps 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now let's move on to step 7 up to 10, and we're going to get the output. So in step 7, there's a message, the sum is, and then get the value from the placeholder sum. So our message, the sum is, and get the value, there's our placeholder sum, and get the value, which worked out to 30. Step 8, the difference is, the difference is, and we are printing the placeholder diff. So let's go to diff. There it is here. And what's the value? The value is 10. Then step 9, the product is, so that's my message. The product is, and we are displaying prod. And in that case, go to the placeholder prod, and it's going to display 200. Finally, in step 10, the quotient is, that's our message. The quotient is, and go to the placeholder QUOT, that's our placeholder, and it's going to display 2. So if we look at the IPO table, once we've input the two numbers, the question said input the two numbers, find the sum difference, product quotient, and then output it. So if my input is 20 and 10, and the sum should be 30, so that I know is correct. If with the same input of 20, 10, if I subtract, I get 10, I'm happy with that. The product, I multiply the two, I get 200, I'm happy with that. And finally, if I divide, I get 2, and I'm happy with that as well. So I can see with this set of input values, I'm getting the correct output. It would be good for you to test it with another set of input values to ensure that you are getting the right answers. Now, consider this situation. Let's assume we made a mistake in step number 4. So let's go to step number 4. And in step number 4, we said difference is equal to num1 minus, and by mistake, I said num1 minus num1. If that was our algorithm, when I'm testing step 4 for the difference, when I'm testing, there it is here, right? When I'm testing this difference using my algorithm, I would come to step 4 and I would say difference equals num1 minus num1. So if I'm following the algorithm exactly the way it's written, num1 is 20 minus num1, which is 20, giving me a value of 0. And then when I get to step 8, and I print the difference is, and I go to the placeholder diff, so it's going to say the difference is, and I go to the placeholder diff, it's going to be 0. So at that stage, when I'm checking if my number is 20 and 10, the difference, should it be 0? And immediately you can see something is incorrect here. And it's incorrect for the difference. So immediately that will then make me go back to my process and look at how I worked out the difference. And when I look at how I worked out the difference, I will then pick up my mistake. Num1 minus num1, oh dear, I've made a mistake. So it can't be num1 minus num1. And then you'll realize it should be num1 minus num2. And then this is how you find mistakes in your algorithm and even when you will be writing programs. So these are the processes you should follow when you are writing an algorithm, and very important when you're testing an algorithm as well. I hope this helps you in understanding algorithms and IPOs a bit more.